Representative Reives, you are recognized.
If I could be recognized for about 3 more questions.
I'm not so sure. Okay, you're recognized.
I appreciate it. We've got some things that came up after I heard these folks. So if the county parties, right now, if a county party proposes somebody for their local board, I think the governor is bound by that. Will the legislature be bound by that also?
So under this bill, the legislature, in terms of the board appointments, is bound by, for example, in your pick, whoever you pick, whoever the speaker picks, and so on and so forth.
So we're taking that power away from the county parties, their ability to pick their own local folks for these.
Well, I think under the current law, the governor gets to select, and this is probably a question for staff, but I think under this bill, the county parties get to make recommendations on all of these things. But, for example, in the case of, in your case with the minority leader, you would have the ability to make that pick instead of the governor.
Okay, well then maybe I do need to ask staff, if I could, under present law, if the governor, is the governor bound by the recommendations sent forth by county parties?
And we will go to staff.
There we
Erica
go.
Churchill is recognized.
Hi. So, Representative Reives, I'm going to first address the PCS question.
Yes.
So, as drafted, it would be up to the political parties to make recommendations to each of the 4 appointing authorities, who would then make recommendations to the General Assembly. The General Assembly would have the ability to amend whatever bill that was. It would be an act of the body, no different than any other appointments bill.
Okay, well then that means that if I were to make a recommendation and it just so happened I'm in the minority, and not that anything ever is partisan up here, but let's say that it went on partisan lines, they could kill my recommendation.
They may not, they would be, the General Assembly could choose a different person.
Right.
Appointments bills are not subject to the veto of the governor, but if that appointments bill contained any other matter, it would be subject to the veto of the governor. So to change the makeup of the board, depending on the alternatives person selected from your recommendation, the General Assembly would still be bound by the statutory requirements, which at this juncture under the PCS would be equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans.
Right.
So if there was a change to that piece of it, then it would need a statutory change, which would then make the bill subject to the veto.
Okay. So in layman's terms, to make sure I'm clear, I recommend Democrat John Smith, and the legislature decides they want Democrat Jane Smith, then the legislature wins.
Yes.
So in effect, we are changing this bill so that the governor doesn't make the appointments anymore, but now the speaker and the president pro tem effectively can make all the appointments. That's not for you to answer.
I'll say it's an act of the General Assembly.
All right, yeah, act of the General Assembly, because we definitely do everything with all 170 members here. Thank you. Second question, please.
Go ahead.
She was going to answer the second question.
I'm going to pull out a copy of the bill. And so the second question was with regard to the governor's appointments today. And the governor is appointing from the 2 political parties that having the highest numbers of registered voters, and each party submits a list of 4 nominees. And it does say that the governor shall appoint from that list.
All right. But under the new law, there is no shall. We can appoint whoever we want.
It would be an act of the General Assembly.
All right, thank you.
Further discussion or debate on the bill?
Oh, yes, I still got a couple more questions. So,
Representative Reives, you are recognized.
and thank you. And I would have loved to have gotten these answered in elections, but here we are. Early voting hours. I know that early voting sites are decided by the county boards, but aren't early voting hours also decided by the county boards?
And I'll let, if the chair will talk, speak to staff, I believe that's the case, but if the chair will go to staff.
Anyone from staff want to take a gamble?
Madam Chair, we were having a sidebar conversation, if you don't mind repeating the question.
Yes. All right, so early voting sites are decided by the board, and we've already heard that if they can't come to an agreement, you end up with one site. Is it the same for early voting hours?
So currently, under state law, the early voting hours are ones that are set by the General Assembly. So at that juncture, I'm not sure that the county boards have a whole lot of leeway there.
Okay.
But the unanimous vote is required for the submission of a plan for early voting sites. There is the possibility for a non-unanimous plan to be submitted to the state board, but it would take an act of the state board to approve that.
Got it. Thank you. That is all for my questions. Just like to be heard about the bill at the appropriate time.